The Galactic Council made its decision 3 million years ago. The vote was not close. Ambassador Vextorin of the Solari Collective stood before the assembled representatives of 412 spacefaring species. His body was tall and thin, covered in scales that shifted color with his mood. Right now, they were deep purple with worry. The great chamber was silent as he prepared to speak. Every eye and sensor was focused on him. The third planet of the yellow star, designated Sol 7734, must be quarantined, he said. The conditions there are simply too extreme for any reasonable form of life to develop. More importantly, if life somehow does develop there, it will be too dangerous to allow into the wider galaxy. The representatives murmured among themselves. On the great screen behind Vextorin, images of Earth appeared. Massive storms covered whole continents. Lightning struck the ground thousands of times per minute. Volcanoes erupted and filled the sky with ash and fire. The oceans churned with poison and heat. It was a world of constant violence. As you can see, Vextorin continued, this planet exists in what we call the liquid water zone of its star. But the conditions are far too violent. The gravity is crushing, nearly 10 times what most of our species consider comfortable. The atmosphere is full of a highly reactive gas called oxygen, which will corrode any metal and burn any organic material. The star bombards the surface with dangerous radiation. The planet's own magnetic field creates electrical storms of tremendous power. He paused to let his words sink in. Several representatives were already nodding in agreement. Most importantly, the planet is covered in water, not frozen safely into ice, but liquid water that evaporates and falls from the sky in random patterns. The temperature swings from freezing to boiling depending on location and season. The planet wobbles on its axis, creating what the scientists call seasons, where the climate changes dramatically throughout the year. Any creature that evolved there would need to be incredibly tough and adaptable to survive. Ambassador Crix9 of the Mechanical Consensus raised one of its many appendages. What is the specific danger you fear, Ambassador? Many hostile worlds exist in the galaxy. Vextorin's scales turned a darker shade. If intelligent life evolved on such a world, it would be shaped by constant struggle. Every moment of its existence would be a fight for survival. It would be aggressive, persistent, and nearly impossible to kill. It would see the peaceful environments of our worlds as easy territory to conquer. The gentle gravity, the stable temperatures, the abundant resources of our planets would seem like paradise to such creatures. We cannot allow such a species to reach the stars. The vote was held. 411 species voted yes. Only one species abstained, but the dreaming ones of Nexus 7 abstained from everything, existing as they did in a state between sleep and waking, so no one paid attention. The quarantine buoys were placed around the Sol system. They broadcast a simple message in all known languages: dangerous world, do not approach, do not make contact, quarantine in effect by order of the Galactic Council. And then the galaxy forgot about Earth. 3 million years passed. Civilizations rose and fell. Wars were fought and forgotten. New species joined the Council while others went extinct. The Sol system remained untouched, its warning buoys faithfully repeating their message to the empty void. On the bridge of the exploration vessel Wandering Star, Captain Thelmira stared at her sensors with growing confusion. The ship had been traveling through an unexplored region of space, mapping star systems that had been marked as uninteresting in the ancient databases. When it detected something that should not exist, she had to check the readings herself. "Are you certain these readings are correct?" she asked her science officer. Drensal checked his instruments for the 5th time. His tentacles moved nervously across the controls, adjusting frequencies and running diagnostic programs. "I have verified them repeatedly, Captain. There are thousands of artificial structures in this system, cities on multiple planets, space stations of enormous size, mining operations throughout the asteroid belt, And ships, so many ships. Thelmira's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought in her species. But this system is under quarantine. The buoys are still broadcasting. No one has been here for millions of years. The buoys are still active, yes, Drensal confirmed. But someone has clearly ignored them. The technology signatures are unlike anything in our database. Completely foreign design philosophy. Materials we do not recognize. Energy sources we cannot identify. The captain made a decision. Take us closer, carefully. We need to understand what we are seeing. The wandering star approached slowly, its stealth systems active, trying to remain hidden from whatever eyes might be watching. As they got closer, the scale of what they were seeing became clear. The third planet, the one that had been quarantined, was no longer a world of chaos and destruction. Its surface was covered with lights that glowed in the darkness of the night side. Massive structures reached into the sky, some of them visible even from orbit. Satellites orbited in neat patterns, communicating with each other in signals the ship's computers could not decode. Ships moved constantly between the planet and the rest of the system, some tiny and fast, others massive and slow. "This is impossible," Thelmira whispered. "Life evolved on that world and reached this level of development." Before Drensal could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The sound made everyone on the bridge jump in surprise. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Space Control. You have entered human territory. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Respond on this frequency." The message was in perfect galactic standard, the common language used by all council species. Thelmira felt her heart's beating faster. This should not be happening. The quarantine had been in place for 3 million years. How could any species have developed space travel in that time without the council noticing? She opened a channel, her voice steady despite her fear. "Earth Space Control, this is Captain Thelmira of the exploration vessel Wandering Star. We are peaceful explorers from the Galactic Council. We detected your presence and wish to investigate. We mean no harm." There was a pause that stretched into uncomfortable silence. Then a new voice came through, deeper and more authoritative. "Galactic Council, we have heard of you. You are the ones who placed the quarantine buoys around our system. We have been waiting a long time to meet you. Please proceed to the following coordinates. A guide ship will escort you to our station. We have much to discuss." The captain looked at her crew. They all looked back at her with fear in their eyes. The species that had evolved on that death world wanted to talk. The creatures that the council had feared for 3 million years were inviting them to a meeting. What choice did they have? The wandering star followed the coordinates it had been given. Soon, a small ship appeared and took position ahead of them. It was sleek and fast, covered in strange symbols that Thelmira did not recognize. The design was unlike anything she had ever seen, all curves and angles that seemed to flow together in ways that defied her understanding of aesthetics. They were led to an enormous station orbiting the third planet. It was beautiful in a way that Thelmira had not expected. Graceful curves and shining metal, with huge windows that let in the light of the yellow star. Ships of all sizes moved around it like insects around a hive, coming and going on business that she could only imagine. When they docked, Thelmira prepared herself to meet the creatures that had evolved on a world of death. She expected monsters. She expected terrifying predators with claws and fangs and armored skin. She expected something that would justify the fear that had led to the quarantine. What she got was something far more disturbing. The human who met them at the airlock was soft. Its skin was smooth and unprotected. It had no claws, no scales, no visible weapons. It smiled at them with flat teeth and extended one of its manipulating appendages in a gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Sol Station," the human said. "My name is James Chen. I am the ambassador assigned to handle first contact with the Galactic Council. We are very happy to finally meet you." Thelmira stared at the creature. This was what had evolved on that terrible world. This soft, fragile-looking being. It seemed wrong somehow. She had expected a monster, and instead she found something that looked like it would break if she touched it too hard. "I am Captain Thelmira," she managed to say. "We are honored to meet you." The human's smile grew wider. "Please, come with me. There is much we need to explain to each other. I imagine you have questions about how we are here." "Many questions," Thelmira agreed. As they walked through the station, she noticed something strange. The humans they passed came in many different shapes and sizes and colors. Some were tall, some short. Some had dark skin, some light. Some had hair on their heads, some did not. The variation was remarkable. In her experience, most species looked essentially identical to each other. "Your species has great diversity," she observed. James Chen nodded. "We had to adapt to many different environments on our world. The humans who lived near the equator developed differently than those who lived in the cold regions. The humans who lived by the sea developed differently than those who lived in the mountains. We are all one species, but we are many varieties." They entered a large room with comfortable furniture and a window that looked out at the stars. James gestured for them to sit. The chairs had been modified to accommodate different body types, Thelmira noticed. The humans had prepared for this meeting. "Now," he said, settling into his own chair, "let me tell you the story of how humanity reached the stars." James Chen poured a cup of dark liquid for himself and offered drinks to his guests. Thelmira accepted a glass of water, though she noticed it was the dangerous liquid kind, not properly frozen. She held it carefully, not drinking. 3 million years ago," James began, "your Galactic Council placed quarantine buoys around our solar system. You declared our world too dangerous for intelligent life. You assumed that if we evolved, we would be monsters." He took a sip of his drink, a brown substance that smelled bitter and strong. "You were half right. Our world is dangerous. The Council's assessment was accurate. Earth has crushing gravity by galactic standards. Our atmosphere is full of oxygen, which is essentially a slow-burning fire that powers our metabolism. Our star bathes us in radiation that damages cellular structures. Water falls from our sky, sometimes freezing into crystals, sometimes arriving in liquid sheets that flood the land. Our temperatures swing wildly from season to season. Predators hunted us. Diseases killed us by the millions. Natural disasters destroyed everything we built." Thelmira listened with growing amazement. The human described these horrors as if they were simple facts of life, no more significant than the color of the sky. "Our ancestors were not the strongest or fastest creatures on our world," James continued. "We were small and weak compared to many of the animals that hunted us. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. What we had was our minds. We learned to think. We learned to cooperate. We learned to use tools." "That is how most intelligent species develop," Drensall said. "It is not unusual." James smiled. "No, what is unusual is what we did with those abilities. We did not just survive on Earth. We conquered it. We killed the predators that hunted us, every single one. We domesticated the animals that could help us, bending them to our will. We cut down forests and built cities in their place. We dammed rivers and moved mountains. We changed the very climate of our planet." The smile faded slightly. "Sometimes for the worse, I should add. We made many mistakes along the way. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times, but we learned from those mistakes, and we kept going, always going. That is what humans do." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "When we discovered the quarantine buoys, we had already landed on our moon. We had already sent probes to other planets in our system. We found your message declaring us too dangerous to exist in the galaxy, and we had two choices. We could accept that judgment and stay confined to our solar system forever, living out our existence in quarantine, or we could ignore it and keep expanding." "You chose to ignore it," Thelmira said. "Obviously," James replied, and there was something in his voice that made Thelmira understand just for a moment why the council had been so afraid. We are humans. We do not accept limits imposed by others. We test them. We break them. We push through them. Your quarantine told us the galaxy thought we were dangerous. We decided to prove that we could be dangerous and civilized at the same time. He turned back to face them. For 3 million years, we have expanded through this region of space without making contact with the Council. We developed our own technology, our own culture, our own civilization. We colonized hundreds of worlds. We engineered our bodies to survive in different environments. We built ships that can cross the galaxy. And we waited. Waited for what? Thelmira asked. For you to find us, James said. We knew that eventually someone from the Council would come to check on the quarantine zone. We wanted to be ready. We wanted to show you that your fears were both justified and misplaced. I do not understand. James sat back down and leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers directly. You were right that a species evolving on a world like Earth would be tough and adaptable and persistent. You were right that we would see other worlds as easy compared to our home. You were right that we would be capable of terrible violence if threatened. His eyes held hers without blinking. But you were wrong to assume that those traits would make us conquerors. Yes, we could conquer your worlds. Your planets with their gentle gravity and stable climates and abundant resources would fall to us easily, but we have no desire to do so. Why not? Drensal asked. If you are as powerful as you claim, why would you not expand into Council space? James laughed softly. Because we learned something in our long history that perhaps the Council never understood. The things that make us dangerous are also the things that taught us the value of peace. We know what it costs to fight. We know the price of war. We have paid it countless times. We have buried millions of our own kind in the ground because we could not stop fighting each other. He gestured at the stars outside the window. We built our civilization in the darkness, alone and quarantined. We had no one to help us, no one to guide us, no one to trade with. Everything we have, we made ourselves. And now that we have found the wider galaxy, we do not want to destroy it. We want to join it. Thelmira was silent for a long moment, processing everything she had heard. The Council will not believe this, she finally said. They will see your strength and they will be afraid. They will vote to destroy you before you can become a threat. James nodded slowly. We know. That is why we have been preparing for this moment for thousands of years. We have something to offer the Council, something that will change their minds. What could possibly change the minds of 400 species? The human ambassador stood again and pressed a button on his desk. The wall behind him became a screen, showing images of space, but not any space that Thelmira recognized. We have been exploring the regions beyond Council space, he said. The void between galaxies, places no Council species has ever visited, and we have found something that threatens us all. Something that makes human aggression look like a child's game. The images showed massive structures moving through the void. They were dark and angular, covered with weapons that defied understanding. They consumed everything in their path, stars and planets alike, leaving nothing behind. We call them the Devourers, James said. They are coming, and when they arrive, the Council will need all the help it can get. Thelmira stared at the screen with growing horror. How long until they reach Council space? At their current speed, approximately 500 years. Enough time to prepare if we start now. Not enough time if we waste it fighting each other. The captain looked at the human with new eyes. Not as a dangerous beast from a death world, but as a potential ally against a greater threat. You planned this, she realized. You knew we would find you eventually. You have been waiting to offer this information in exchange for acceptance. James did not deny it. Humans are very good at planning for the future. We have had 3 million years to think about how this moment would go. We hope that the Council will see the value in accepting us as partners rather than trying to destroy us as threats. And if they choose to destroy you anyway? The human's expression did not change, but something in his eyes became harder, like metal being forged in fire. Then we will defend ourselves, and the Devourers will find the galaxy already weakened by war when they arrive. Everyone loses. We would prefer a different outcome. Thelmira made her decision. I will take your message to the Council. I will tell them what I have seen here, but I cannot promise how they will respond. James nodded. That is all we ask. A chance to speak before judgment is passed. A chance to prove that humanity is more than the monsters you feared we would become. He extended his hand again. Do we have an agreement? Thelmira had never touched a human before. Their skin looked so soft, so vulnerable, but she reached out and took his hand in her own manipulating appendage. We have an agreement, she said. The hand that gripped hers was surprisingly strong, stronger than she had expected, strong enough to crush bone if it wanted to, but it was gentle, controlled, deliberate. That, she thought, was perhaps the most human thing of all. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had not been this full in 1,000 years. Representatives from all 412 member species had gathered to hear the testimony of Captain Thelmira and to debate the fate of the human species. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate beings of every size and shape, with sections for those who breathed different atmospheres and required different temperatures. Ambassador Vextoran's descendant, Vexmoran, stood at the same podium where his ancestor had proposed the quarantine 3 million years before. His scales were pale with shock and anger. This is exactly what my ancestor warned about, he said. The humans have become exactly the threat we feared. They have developed advanced technology beyond our understanding. They have colonized hundreds of worlds without our knowledge. They have built a military force that could challenge the entire council. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Fear was spreading like a disease. And now they come to us with threats of an external enemy, offering their strength in exchange for acceptance. This is clearly a manipulation, a trick to gain access to our world so they can conquer us from within. The Devourers may not even exist. It could all be a lie designed to make us lower our guard. Thelmira rose to speak. She had never addressed the full council before, and the weight of all those eyes and sensors on her was almost unbearable. But she had promised James Chen she would deliver his message, and she intended to keep that promise. Ambassador, with respect, I spent 3 days among the humans. I walked through their cities. I spoke with their people. I ate their food and drank their water. I saw their art, their music, their science. They are not the monsters we imagined. They have deceived you, Vexmoran insisted. They evolved on a world of violence. Their nature is violence. They cannot change what they are any more than we can change our own natures. Perhaps, Thelmira replied, but neither can we change what they have become. The question is not whether humans are dangerous. They clearly are. The question is what we do with that knowledge. She activated her own display, showing the images James Chen had shared with her. The massive structures moving through the void, the consumed stars, the empty darkness left behind. These are the Devourers. The humans have been tracking their approach for centuries. They are real, they are coming, and we have no defense against them. The chamber fell silent as the representatives stared at the massive structures consuming everything in their path. Some of the smaller representatives seemed to shrink in their seats, as if trying to hide from the images. The humans have offered to share their technology and their strength in exchange for membership in the council. They ask only that we accept them as equals and stop treating them as a quarantined threat. In return, they will help us prepare for the invasion that is coming. Vexmoran's scales flushed with anger. And if we refuse, what then? Will these so-called allies turn their weapons on us? No, Thelmira said, Ambassador Chen was very clear. If we refuse, the humans will simply defend their own territory and let us face the devourers alone. They will not attack us, but they will not help us either. That is still a threat, Vexmoran argued. They are holding their protection over us as leverage. They are offering us a choice, Thelmira corrected. A choice we would not have if they had never made contact at all. They could have hidden from us forever, watched us be destroyed, and then dealt with the devourers themselves. Instead, they reached out. That has to mean something. The debate continued for hours. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves united in fear, though they were divided on what to fear more, the humans or the devourers. Some argued that the humans were the more immediate threat, already present and capable of striking at any moment. Others argued that the devourers were clearly worse, a mindless force of destruction that would consume everything regardless of politics. Finally, the Speaker of the Council called for a vote. "We will vote on 3 options," she announced. Option 1, destroy the human civilization before they become a greater threat. Option 2, maintain the quarantine and have no further contact. Option 3, accept the human offer of alliance and begin preparations for the devourer threat. The votes came in slowly. Each species had 1 vote, regardless of size or power. The counting took hours as representatives consulted with their governments and made their decisions. When it was done, the speaker announced the results. 83 species have voted for destruction. 147 have voted to maintain the quarantine. 182 have voted for alliance. The motion for alliance passes by a narrow margin. Vexmoran slammed his appendage on his desk. "This is madness. You are inviting the enemy into our homes. My ancestor warned us about this exact situation." "The vote is final," the speaker replied calmly. "A delegation will be sent to the human capital to negotiate the terms of alliance. Ambassador Thelmira will lead the delegation, given her unique experience with the human species." Thelmira bowed her head in acceptance. She had not wanted this responsibility, but she understood why it had been given to her. She was the only one who had actually met the humans. She was the only one who had seen them as something other than monsters from a death world. As she prepared to leave the chamber, Vexmoran approached her. "You have doomed us all," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "The humans cannot be trusted. They are predators wearing masks of civilization, and when they show their true nature, we will all suffer." Thelmira looked at him with her 4 eyes. "Perhaps you are right," she said. "Or perhaps we have been given a gift, a chance to face the coming darkness with allies who know how to survive in hostile conditions. Either way, the vote is done. Now we see what the future brings." She left him standing there, his scales cycling through colors of fear and anger. The delegation arrived at Sol Station 1 month later. Thelmira was accompanied by representatives from 50 different species, each one curious and nervous in equal measure. Some had voted for the alliance. Others had voted against it. But all of them understood that this was a historic moment, a turning point in galactic history. James Chen met them at the airlock, the same warm smile on his face. "Welcome back, Captain, and welcome to all of you. We are honored that the Council has chosen to give us a chance." The negotiations took 6 months. They were difficult and complex, as negotiations between different cultures always are. But Thelmira discovered that humans were very skilled at negotiation. They knew exactly how much to ask for and how much to give. They wanted access to Council space, but they agreed to strict limits on military presence. They wanted trade rights, but they offered generous terms that benefited both sides. They wanted a seat on the Council, but they accepted observer status as a first step. What surprised Thelmira most was how much the humans were willing to share. "These are the plans for our shield generators," James said during one session, handing over a data device. "They should be compatible with most Council ship designs. They were developed specifically to counter devourer weapons." You are giving us your military technology freely, one representative asked in disbelief. The Devourers do not care about political boundaries, James replied. If they reach Council space while your defenses are weak, they will destroy you, and then they will have more resources to bring against us. Helping you survive helps us survive. It is simple logic. Nothing about humans is simple, Thelmira muttered. James heard her and laughed. No, we are very complicated, but our motivations in this case are straightforward. We want to survive. We want our children to have a future. And we have learned over millions of years that survival is easier when you have friends. The alliance was formally signed at the end of the 6th month. Humanity was no longer quarantined. They were partners, members of the galactic community. But the real work was just beginning. 500 years passed faster than anyone expected. The galaxy transformed during that time. Human engineers worked alongside Council scientists to develop new weapons and shields. Human teachers opened schools on Council worlds, sharing their knowledge of survival and adaptation. Human traders brought goods and ideas to corners of the galaxy that had been isolated for millennia. Human doctors shared medical techniques that seemed like miracles to species that had never faced the diseases of Earth. Not everyone welcomed the changes. There were protests on worlds that feared human influence. There were riots in cities where traditional ways of life were threatened by new ideas. There were 3 separate attempts to assassinate the human ambassador to the Council. But humans were hard to kill, and the assassins discovered this the painful way. Each attempt failed, and each failure only demonstrated that the fears about humans had some basis in fact. They were tough, adaptable, and refused to die easily. The protests eventually faded as the benefits of alliance became clear. Human technology improved life for billions of beings across the galaxy. Human medicine cured diseases that had plagued species for millennia. Human determination inspired others to push beyond their perceived limits. Thelmira lived long enough to see the transformation begin, but not long enough to see it complete. Her species typically lived for 100 years, and she was already old when she made first contact with humanity. She died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, 200 years after the alliance was formed. James Chen attended her funeral. Humans did not live as long as many Council species naturally, but their medical technology had extended their lifespans considerably. He was 312 years old, maintained by genetic modifications and nanomachine repairs, still serving as Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. She was the first to give us a chance, he said in his eulogy. When everyone else saw monsters, she saw possibilities. When the galaxy would have condemned us to quarantine forever, she spoke for hope. We will never forget her. 300 years after the alliance, the warning systems detected the first Devourer scouts entering the galaxy. They were worse than the images had shown. Massive ships that seemed to absorb light itself, making them hard to see against the backdrop of space. Weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Communication signals that defied translation if they were communication at all. And behind the scouts, countless more vessels, a tide of destruction that had consumed everything in its path for millions of years. The Council fleet met them at the edge of known space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from every member species flew together, their weapons coordinated by human tactical systems, their shields reinforced by human technology. Admiral Sarah Chen, direct descendant of James, commanded the human contingent from the bridge of the battleship Earth's Defiance. She was calm and focused as the enemy approached, a trait she had inherited from her ancestor. Her crew moved around her with practiced efficiency, every one of them knowing that this was the moment they had trained for their entire lives. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have trained for this moment for 500 years. We know what we are facing, and we know what we are fighting for. She looked out at the stars. at the galaxy that humanity had worked so hard to join. The creatures coming toward us have never faced an enemy like us. They have never met a species that evolved on a death world, that survived by stubbornness and adaptation, that refused to die no matter what the universe threw at them. They have consumed countless civilizations, but they have never consumed a human civilization. Her voice hardened. They think they are the ultimate predators. They are wrong. Today we show them what humanity means. Today we show them what the galaxy means. Today we fight together. The battle lasted 3 days. The Devourers were as terrible as the humans had warned. Their weapons tore through shields and armor like paper. Their tactics were ruthless and efficient, showing no mercy and expecting none in return. Ships were destroyed by the hundreds, their crews dying in the cold of space. But they had never faced an enemy like this. The Council fleet adapted. When one strategy failed, they tried another. When ships were destroyed, others moved to fill the gaps. When entire battle groups were wiped out, the survivors regrouped and counterattacked. And at the heart of the defense, the human ships fought with a fury that shocked even their allies. They pushed into the enemy formation, taking damage that should have destroyed them, refusing to fall. They developed new tactics on the fly, sharing them across the fleet in real time. They died by the thousands, but they kept fighting. On the second day, the Devourer command ship was identified. It was massive, the size of a small moon, and it controlled the coordination of the entire enemy fleet. Every attack, every movement, every tactical decision flowed from that vessel. Admiral Chen made a decision. Earth's Defiance will lead the attack on the command ship, she announced. All available ships follow us in. Admiral, that is suicide, her tactical officer protested. The defenses around that ship are impenetrable. No fleet has ever breached them. Then we will be the first, Chen replied. Humans have been doing impossible things for 3 million years. This is just one more. The assault force was made up of ships from every council species. Humans led, but they did not fight alone. Side by side with creatures they had once been quarantined from, they pushed through the Devourer defenses. The losses were staggering. For every enemy ship destroyed, 3 allied ships were lost, but they kept going. They did not turn back. They did not surrender. Earth's Defiance took 17 direct hits during the approach. Its shields failed. Its hull was breached in a dozen places. Fires burned through entire decks. 3/4 of its crew were dead or wounded. But it reached the command ship. Prepare the dimensional warheads, Admiral Chen ordered through bloodied lips. Target their core systems. Admiral, if we fire at this range, we will be caught in the blast. I know, she smiled, the same smile her ancestor had worn when he first welcomed Thelmira to Sol Station. Sometimes survival means sacrifice. Earth will remember what we did here. The galaxy will remember. She pressed the firing control. The explosion was visible across 3 star systems. The Devourer command ship was torn apart from within, its coordination signals suddenly silent. Without their leader, the enemy fleet fell into confusion. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination began to drift aimlessly, still dangerous but no longer directed. The Council forces pressed their advantage. What had been a desperate defense became a rout. The Devourers, for the first time in their existence, retreated. They never came back. Earth's Defiance was gone. Admiral Chen was gone. 30,000 humans and 15,000 allied crew members had died in that final assault, but the galaxy was saved. The memorial was built at the site of the battle. It was a simple structure, just a ring of stone floating in space, with the names of every fallen warrior carved into its surface. Humans and aliens side by side, united in sacrifice. James Chen, now over 500 years old and sustained only by the most advanced technology humanity possessed, attended the dedication ceremony. He was the last living person who remembered the time before the Alliance, the last one who had seen the fear in the Council's eyes when they first learned of humanity's existence. He looked at the monument and smiled. "When the Council quarantined our world," he said to the gathered representatives, "they thought they were protecting themselves from monsters. They thought isolation would keep them safe. They thought fear was the answer to a universe full of dangers." He turned to face the crowd, human and alien alike. They were wrong. Safety does not come from walls and barriers. It comes from trust and cooperation. It comes from reaching out to those who are different and finding common ground. It comes from being willing to fight together when darkness threatens. He pointed at the monument. The people whose names are carved here understood that. They came from 400 different worlds, 400 different species, 400 different ways of life. But in the end, they were one fleet, one force, one family. His voice grew stronger, carrying across the gathered crowd. Humanity spent 3 million years alone building our civilization in quarantine. We thought we did not need anyone else. We thought our strength was enough. We were wrong too. We needed partners. We needed friends. We needed the galaxy. He smiled, the same warm smile that had greeted Thelmira all those centuries ago. And now the galaxy needs us, not because we are dangerous, though we are, not because we are strong, though we are, but because we understand something that our lonely history taught us: no one survives alone. He looked up at the stars, at the lights of ships from 100 different species gathered to honor the dead. The universe is vast and dangerous and full of things that want to destroy us, but together we are more than any threat. Together we are civilization. Together we are hope. He stepped back from the podium. Earth was quarantined as dangerous, and we built a civilization anyway. Obviously. That is what humans do. We take the impossible and make it possible. We take despair and transform it into hope. We take enemies and turn them into friends. The crowd erupted in applause, a sound that echoed across species and cultures and languages. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard before, this chorus of different voices united in celebration. "Now," James Chen concluded, "let us go build something even greater, together." And they did. In the centuries that followed, the galaxy flourished as it never had before. New species were discovered and welcomed into the fold. Old conflicts were resolved. Trade routes expanded to reach every corner of known space. Science advanced beyond anything the old council had imagined possible. And at the heart of it all were the humans, no longer monsters from a death world, but partners in the great project of civilization. They brought their strength and their stubbornness, their adaptability and their refusal to accept limits. They brought the lessons learned on a world that had tried its best to kill them. They brought hope. The quarantine buoys still floated in space around the Sol system, still broadcasting their ancient warning. But now they were monuments, not barriers. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see them, to remember the time when humanity had been feared rather than embraced. Sometimes, young humans would ask their elders about those days. They would ask what it was like to live in quarantine, cut off from the wider galaxy. The elders would smile and tell them stories of the time before, when humanity had faced the stars alone. "Were you scared?" the young ones would ask. "No," the elders would reply. "We were human. We do not do scared. We do determined. We do stubborn. We do whatever it takes to survive." And the young ones would nod, not fully understanding but knowing that this was what it meant to be human, to face the impossible and make it possible, to turn fear into hope. Earth was quarantined as dangerous, and humanity built a civilization anyway. Obviously,